Good morning out there, traders. It is July 10th, 2024, and welcome to the Apteros Daily Market Insight. Let's start with our recap, and then we'll update for today. So, taking a look at what's going on here from yesterday, we had a line in the sand that was bullish in nature, with scenario one being a hold up above that area and scenario two being a breakdown underneath it. Didn't need scenario two at all yesterday. However, we did need kind of an alternate plan, which I was talking about in the DMI about this neutral level. If we held above that neutral level, looking at a more bullish day heading up into the 54s was kind of the overall targeting expectation there. But you could see what ended up happening in the price action. It held this neutral level, but never really released out to the targets. But it did give us some good MFE. If you're looking at this from low to high, it's about 10 points in about 8 points or so here. So decent moves on the ES, especially for yesterday. You're essentially nailing the whole of the rotations from the lows. But the idea here, it just didn't get the release that we were looking for out into the target area. But we had the bias right, we had the idea right, and we had the locations right. We just didn't get any volatility or follow through on those ideas. So that can happen. It's common. So it's definitely something that we think about. It's one of the reasons why uh, one of the techniques that we use in trade management is scaling. But at the same time, you know, the preps aren't about trade management. They're not about execution. They are about analysis and understanding where things are shifting and changing for you to execute. So with this particular prep, I had an alternate scenario around this neutral level here that played out for the whole day, with the main opportunities coming from these two lower inflections with a couple of releases from price for the day. And then from there, really not much else, because as you came into the close of the day, it became extremely choppy, nothing really there for you. The inflections were decent, like from the lows there, but they just didn't release anywhere until the overnight session kind of came into play. So overall, nailed the bias, nailed trade locations, nailed an alternate scenario where we had a pretty clear plan around this neutral level as well. And that was really the kind of story from yesterday. Taking a look at today, we kind of have almost the exact same scenario because we have some value that was built over the course of yesterday. So think about like what's happening here in the narrative, right? Yesterday we had value that was built here. We broke out of it, held above it for the day, and created more value from a bullish perspective. So value is continuing to move to the upside, creating a more short-term outlook for the bulls. And that's really what we're seeing again today. So a new established value, new recency here, and we have a basic line in the sand that's meaningful to multiple time frames and multiple days. So this is our main line in the sand, and the idea here is that we hold above it, it stays bullish. We get below it, it's bearish, and that scenario is 1 and 2 respectively. That's it. It's very similar, like I said, to what's going on yesterday, including what's happening up here in the neutral level. If we hold above that neutral level, the expectation is a little bit more of a bullish outlook. Our target area, though, got moved out because of the volatility on that time frame. So our main target area now is out of the 70s as opposed to where it was, I think, somewhere in the 50s, 54s, or something like that. But that's the general outlook of what's going on today. Like I said, very similar to yesterday in terms of scenario analysis and so forth. We just continue to see the same thing, bullish until proven otherwise. And then once we are proven otherwise, in other words, we need a really meaningful line in the sand to break down to start thinking about anything bearish at this point from a technical perspective. Um, the reality here is we're out at highs, we're pushing extremes on higher time frames, but we could do that for a couple of days before the market starts a pullback phase or something like that. So really, we're paying attention to the what is picture, keeping that very clear, with scenario one being bullish until proven otherwise, and that would be scenario two kind of holding under our line in the sand area. And if that does happen, if it does manifest itself, the first thing that you'd be looking for is a move across this particular value area, and then a continuation of the downside where you would see probably a neutral target there, and then it's kind of wide open underneath that reference all the way down to the 92s, in terms of targeting for the downside. So if you're really looking at this chart, you can kind of see how the landscape is laid out. A little bit more open space to the upside in terms of where we're looking from the line in the sand, and a little bit more cluttered neutral references to the downside. But that's kind of the overall. These are like the stretch targets of the bigger time frames. In the more immediate here and now, there's not much to go off of on the upside because we're at the highs, right? So there's not much in terms of targeting. Um, really what to do there. So scaling is kind of an important concept whenever you're out at these levels, because you could get a day like yesterday where the volatility just didn't follow through, but you had good MFE. So, getting some profit out of some moves that don't really release is kind of a good thing. Whenever it comes to the downside, you do have some targets that you could work with that are a little bit more shorter along the way down to a main contextual target, a main like core target, you could call it that. So that's just the difference between the two landscapes in terms of scenarios and targeting and that kind of thing. I just wanted to kind of mention it here. But other than that, the general scenario is very similar to yesterday. We find ourselves in a value migration to the upside. The short term is bullish, so we stick with the what is picture until proven otherwise. Trade well out there, mind your risk, and have a wonderful trading day.